Hello, it's time for Combat Patrol Carnage. It's lore time, and we're back with issue 24, ready to dive into its lore. So some nice articles. We learn about the fall of the Aeldari and the Webway, which they use to navigate the galaxy. We also look at the Forge Worlds of the Imperium. We have a short story as we return to Sergeant Askerton and his ongoing quest. Plus we name our Guardian Defenders and look at their data sheet before we play our game next issue. So, before we hit the table, don't forget to do all the usual. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop me a comment down below. Love hearing back from you guys, and it goes a massive way to help out the channel. I'd be interested to know what you have been naming your units, if you've been using the naming tables we've had in the collection. Let me know in your favourites in the comment section down below. And yeah, I've already shared mine on social media. Plus we'll be seeing it hopefully in future games as we go forward. Finally then, Combat Patrol Carnage is proudly sponsored by Warbay.shop, your one-stop supply for all your hobby needs. They stock everything you need from getting started, including models, paints and gaming equipment. If you're interested in picking up some extra issues of Combat Patrol, you can do that as well, as they have a backlog of previous part works, as well as all 90 issues available to pre-order. So check them out, there's a link in the video description, and who knows, you might find your next hobby project at a bit of a discount. Right, let's head to the table and do some lore reading. Here we are then, back with issue 24, and it's time to move on to our lore section. So we can move our guardians off to the side and they'll be ready for our battle next video. So let's just pop them to one side. And then we'll adjust the camera and we can dive right on in to issue 24. So here we go, past our paint guide, and here we have our first set of new lore, the Fall of the Aeldari. Following the fall, many of the Aeldari now live aboard gigantic craft worlds. Pride comes before fall. And so it was that the Aeldari, supreme masters of technology, lapsed into contented complacency. Unafraid of the younger species and unconcerned by any threat from without, they sank into indulgence. It was a mistake that would shatter their civilization and unleash a new horror on the galaxy. Once the Aeldari civilization stood with the whole galaxy at its feet. Their unparalleled mastery of travel, military strategy, and technology saw their empire spread practically uncontested across vast regions of space. On each world, a near-perfect paradise was established in which the Aeldari sought to experience the highest of pleasures. Gradually, the Aeldari turned from finding joy in learning and a mastery of skill to indulging in sensation and hedonism. Eventually they became consumed by their quest to gratify every desire, falling ever deeper into their own passions and fantasies. Unbeknown to them, the dark energy of their decadence and corruption gathered in the warp, eventually gaining its own consciousness and becoming a new chaos god, Slaanesh. Slaanesh's violent birth unleashed a storm of potent psychic energy, fatally rending the souls of billions of Aeldari and other sentient beings, and reducing the once proud Aeldari Empire to a broken husk of its former glory. A new path. Since the birth of Slaanesh, the few remaining Aeldari are members of a slowly dying species, never again to reclaim the glory of their former empire. They are fractured into small factions and cults focused on survival, holding little trust in their fellow Aeldari and even less trust in anyone else. Much of their effort is focused on ensuring that they never again contribute psychic energy to Slaanesh, and their lives are lived by following strict paths of discipline and learning. They also greatly fear their souls travelling into the warp after death, there to be devoured by Slaanesh, and the souls of dying Aeldari are captured and held safe in spirit stones. The Ynnari are a mysterious cult who bring hope of renewal to the Aeldari. Slaaneshi demons do battle amid a roiling sea of potent psychic energy. Slaanesh. Slaanesh is the chaos god of decadence, hedonism, and excess. It inspires pride, lust, and self-interest in its followers, and feeds on the psychic energy that is produced. Not just by luxuriant indulgence and violent gratification, but by any sensation taken to excess. Pain, fear, and envy fuel Slaanesh as much as greed, gluttony, and pride. Slaanesh's appetite can never be sated, and it is known by the Aeldari simply as she who thirsts, for even to this day they refuse to speak its real name. So that's a little bit about the fall of the Aeldari and the doom that they created for themselves. Moving on though, we're taking a look at the Webway. The Webway is built on ancient technology that is still in use today. It is ascended most frequently by the Aeldari, who use it to travel across the galaxy, but it is far from a safe haven, and many others can enter it too. Aeldari craft worlds move only at sublight speed, not nearly fast enough to cover the smallest fraction of space. Even over a period of 1,000 years, Aeldari who need to travel great distances therefore rely on the Webway. The Webway connected all parts of the ancient Aeldari Empire and many other places besides in a mysterious tangle of labyrinthian pathways. Now there are still connections between the craft worlds and many other places. Although they came to master its secrets, the Aeldari did not build the Webway. It was constructed through the fabric of the warp by an ancient and highly advanced species known as the Older Ones, many millions of years ago. Today, many of the pathways have fallen into disrepair and lead to places of peril, places overrun by the forces of chaos, or simply to dead ends. Many of its paths have been sealed by the Aeldari, desperate to keep the powers of chaos and other primordial warp entities from infiltrating the pathways that lead to their homes. A group of Aeldari warriors stand before a colossal Webway portal. So yeah, in the shrine of the Phoenix Lords, a giant Webway portal is opened, and Avatar Kane striding forth with the Farseer and his bodyguards watching on. A labyrinthine realm. The Aeldari are the foremost masters of the Webway, but it is by no means their exclusive domain. Many other species are able to access at least some of the Webway with greater or lesser success. The Drukhari, who are corrupted descendants of the ancient Aeldari themselves, can not only navigate the Webway, but have even managed to establish cities within its borders, such as the port city of Komorra. Inquisitor Greyfax leads a rear guard of Black Templars towards a Webway gate. A desperate escape. The Webway has played an important role in many important battles across the ages. During the 13th Black Crusade of Abaddon the Spoiler, many battles were fought by the Imperium against Abaddon and his Black Legion, but few fought as fiercely and famously as Saint Celestine and her retinue. After a heroic rearguard action, the Living Saint, along with Inquisitor Greyfax and an escort of Space Marines from the Black Templars chapter, made a narrow escape through an ancient Webway gate. With the help of the Yinkar E. Visarch and indeed Yvraine, as they escaped the doom of Cadia. So there we have a little more about the mysterious realm known as the Webway. Moving back to Imperial space, we're looking at Forge Worlds. Amid the steam and choking smog, the cacophony of industry rings out over the wasted surfaces of the galaxy's Forge Worlds. Forge Worlds are entire planets that are given over to producing the weapons and equipment that the Imperium uses to fight its many wars. Each Forge World is controlled by the Adeptus Mechanicus, an order of fanatical devotees who worship the machine god of Mars. Under the watchful eye of the Mechanicus tech priests, the denizens of Forge Worlds toil amid the industrial hellscape, working ever harder to satisfy the Imperium's endless appetite for weaponry. A Forge World is defended by mighty armies of its own creation. They have the Skitarii legions, cult tech priests, and even a Titan there. Forge World Lucius. Forge World Lucius is a hollow world whose core has been replaced by an artificial sun. The blasting energy that is emitted is used to power a vast industrial sprawl that is laid out on the inside of the planet. Lucius is particularly known for its unique alloy, Lucian, that can only be made because of the bountiful energy supply. Forge World Riser. Riser is an ancient Forge World that made its name supplying the Imperium with plasma weapons and containment films. It also produced Leman Russ Executioner and Stormblade pattern tanks, specialized variants of existing designs. For many years now, the whole world has been consumed by war as its veteran Skitarii troops face off against waves of orc attacks. A tech priest watches over the operations of a manufactorum. So yeah, there we go. Some of the Forge Worlds. We'll probably see a few more in a future article. So before we move on, we do have a quote. An army shorn of its weapons is nothing but a gang of fools with sticks. It is the Mechanicus who turn a brawl into war. Moving on then, we have our last article before we have our naming ceremony for our Guardian squad. And we return to the Silver Templars in Bonds of Honor, Part 6. Well then, my boys, take a good look around at your new home. But mind, I can't walk any slower than I already am while you dawdle and gawp. Stick close by me. You may be through the gates safely, but what do you think would happen if you outsiders were found wandering around without an escort? Our guards do not just watch the wall, but every inch of the citadel within. Do not fear too much. I would not let you go to waste. Nicandor, I think you have the makings of a fine servo skull. And Acrisius, with your delicate hands, you might find most of your body transformed into a Medicae servitor, watching over your friends here as they are transformed into space marines. I bet none of you have ever seen a servitor. I see a lot of blank faces, but none with the courage to say they don't know. Believe me when I say that you will not survive your training like that. There is time to be resolute and independent, but there is time to ask for and give aid. So to answer the question none of you are bold enough to ask, some might say the servitor is a machine that thinks. Sounds like heretical talk, does it not? Well, I suppose it would be closer to the truth to say a servitor is a thing that thinks and is almost a machine. You see, all of the thinking is processed by living neurotissue, not by the machine itself. And where does that tissue come from? Break too many rules of ours, and you may just find out. Now, I mustn't get sidetracked. I'm determined to finish telling you about Sergeant Askerton before too long. Remember how he drew the Tyranids out of those hellish tunnels and into the flames of the Infernus Marines? Well, you couldn't have a better example of a great brother calling for aid and winning all the mightier victory because of it. Remember that the next time you need to learn something. lest you cling to your ignorance or your weakness out of pride and shame, placing your own discomfort above the needs to serve your brothers and the chapter. Do you think yourself better than the sergeant? No, I didn't think so. But Sergeant Askerton was not without pride and honour. He just had the discipline to wait for victory in more important matters before he gave his attentions to more personal duties. As soon as that victory against the Tyranids had been won, he set out with his squad for what he hoped would be a brief venture to find his lost rifle. Alas, he and the squad scoured the area under the flight path of the transport ship from which it had fallen, but what they found was far worse than they had feared. The area had been picked clean by scavengers, no doubt by some band of petty rust merchants or scrap dealers. Every trace of useful material had been stripped from the rubble, every last scrap of metal gone. Only dust and gore remained. What were the chances that the scrappers had somehow missed judgment, the rifle, and it lay here waiting patiently to be claimed? Slim to none, but Askerton could not take the chance, and he and his squad searched for days without rest until at last they concluded that the worst had happened, and that the rifle was gone. Reliquaries. The Space Marines have the history of millennia behind them. Even newly founded chapters, such as the Silver Templars, have a lineage stretching back through their parent chapter. Over the many years, the Space Marines have all amassed a huge store of relics such as the bones or armor fragments of great warriors. These are stored in reliquaries for protection. The largest of these may be the size of an entire building. The smallest can be taken into battle so that the chapter can receive the blessings of its forebears as it fights. The sergeant was not one for displays of feeling. Even the thrill of battle or the stab of an insult lay cold upon him. He was cunning and calculating, more dangerous than any petulant tyrant or any undisciplined berserker. But on the realization that his rifle had been taken, he snatched up a weapon from one of the brothers, and with a cry of anger, he emptied it into the ground nearby. The acrid smell of propellant issued from the rifle, and the thundering boom of each shot echoed for miles around, until at last all was silent, save for the momentary tinkling sound of the spent casings falling to the floor. Not one of the brothers dared to mention the outburst, and they all waited quietly for his decision. They all knew that an oath had been sworn, and now the hunt must be joined. But the quest was like a search for a star in the sky, where to begin and where to go next. If nothing else, there was at least the certainty that such a rifle would not be melted down, nor would it be forgotten and left to corrode in the junk piles of some scrapper on a backwards world. No, even the most unenlightened would recognize it as an object of exceptional worth. No doubt worth more than the entire planet on which it was hidden. But that also meant it would move fast. No scrapper would dare sit on such an item for long. For how could such a creature hope to defend themselves against the weapon's true master? The question was, could Askerton and his brothers find it before it travelled too far and became lost in a network of smugglers, traders, and thieves? Time was of the essence. Once again, his inscrutable self, the sergeant named those who would take particular positions in the search. First, he chose Heraklion, naming him his lieutenant and commander of the squad should the sergeant perish. Heraklion stepped forward, honoured to be chosen, and the brothers acknowledged him as Askerton's second. Next, Askerton chose Darion, naming him the sergeant's eyes and ears, both within the squad and without. Darion had served many years as a scout, remaining indispensable in the 10th Company, long after he was eligible to transfer to one of the more senior units. Finally, Askerton chose Mektras to stand by his side, for he knew that the fire of shame still burned hot within him, and the sergeant wished to offer the young warrior a chance to free himself from its sting. Mektras saw the kindness of the sergeant in this offer, and accepted the position with pride and gratitude, determined to prove himself worthy of the honour. Then, with one last wistful look behind him at the ground that his rifle had laid on just recently, the sergeant strode off, leading his brothers forward, as he voxed a gruff request for transport. That planet was the last the brothers would see of the Tyranids for quite some time. They knew, of course, that there would be many hardships ahead, and they steeled themselves for what was to come. But, my boys, let me tell you this now. Though they foresaw a perilous journey ahead of them, in truth, they didn't know the half of it. The squad takes off from the surface of the planet aboard a transport craft. So there we have it. Sergeant Askerton and his squad are now on the march and searching for his lost rifle. Finally then, for this video, we are about to name our Guardian Defender squad. So, I've got my pen, my paper, my dice, and issue 23 for the naming chart. So, let's get to it. So first off, Guardian Defenders. The Aeldari are a dwindling species. In times of war, those Aeldari who normally undertake civic or artistic work are called to the defense of their craft world. When mobilized and equipped with Aeldari weapons and armor, these Guardian Defenders are the equal of any professional unit in the galaxy. So we've got a background table to roll on, but first we need to get the unit name. So to name your Guardian Defenders, use the tables found in C Aeldari 1, either by rolling or by picking the name that you like the best and recording the result below. So here we go. First we need to find the leader of the squad. So we've got a 6 followed by a 2. Bettine. That sounds female-ish. Was my leader a female? Yes. So that works. So Bettine. And the squad epithet, we get 2 followed by a 1. So it's Bettine's Bright Warriors. There we go. So now for their background, what do we get? A 3. So the Guardian Defenders are some of the most experienced Guardian Warriors in the craft world, and they take on the most dangerous tasks. So yeah, that explains why they are the Bright Warriors, as they like to be a shining example to the rest of the craft world. And now we got the usual, so we've built them, we've painted with them, and we'll be taking them to our game in the next video, so we'll tick that off while we're here. One final thing to look at then is their data sheet. So we've got a movement of 7, toughness of 3, 4+ save, only a single wound each, 6+ armor, and an objective control of 2. And the weapon platform is a movement of 7, toughness of 3, 4+ save, only a wound of 2, and again a 6+ save, but no objective control. So it doesn't actually benefit anything to the squad, except for the star cannon. So we get the Shuriken Catapult, which is an assault weapon, 18-inch range, 2 attacks, 3+ to hit, strength 4, -1 and 1 damage. And we've got the Star Cannon, so 36 inches, 2 attacks, ballistic skill 3+, strength 8, -3, and 2 damage. So a pretty potent plasma weapon there. And then melee weapons, they have close combat weapons, so range of melee, 1 attack, 3+, strength 3, 0 AP, 1 damage. So faction ability, they are the Strands of Fate faction, so we'll learn this in a future issue, most likely. We have Defenders of Fate, so at the end of your command phase, for each objective marker you control that has 1 or more units from your army with this ability within range of it, roll a d6 and add it to your Fate dice displaying the result you just rolled. So we'll learn about Fate dice and stuff in, again, a future issue, which is, I believe is mentioned down here. Crewed platform. When the last Guardian Defender model is in this unit is destroyed, any remaining heavy weapon platform models in this unit are also destroyed. So yeah, well, you could put the wounds on the platform to try and save your individual models. It is best to just let your Guardians go and save the weapon platform as long as you can. So yeah, Defenders of Fate here. The Guardian Defenders have an ability called Defenders of Fate. This will interact with the army's faction ability, which will be covered in a future issue of Combat Patrol, so don't worry about this or the Defenders of Fate rule for now. So there we have it. Right, up next we have our playthrough. So we actually use, oh, I didn't realise it was both mats. I thought it was just one mat. So yeah, we are using both mats. We have the Farseer here, spawn points for Termagants, the Von Rein's Leapers, and we have an Aeldari deployment zone. But we'll cover that in our next video. So that's it for this video. Thank you all very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the information and our short story. And yeah, we'll be definitely taking our Guardian Defenders and making them the true bright warriors that they are. But until then, all I have to do is to say thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you next time on more Combat Patrol Carnage. Goodbye.